Okay, so now we've finished making our map. It's perhaps not the greatest map in the world, but it'll do. We can, it'll do for this exercise, for me. For you guys, you'll need to do a little bit more work. But just to illustrate now how we make an actual layout for the map. I've made 2 layouts already here for you. In another video, we can look at making our own layout and with a few more extra details and such things. But right now, let's just look at a basic layout so we get things done. So we go to layout and we can choose either landscape or portrait for this A4. Click on that landscape and we get this come up. Now, if your map isn't centered on the right place, there's this tool here, move item content. Click on that. Let's just that on there, and then we can move this around to a new place, depending on where we want the map centered. The other thing we need to do actually is to get rid of the background photograph. As you can see, if I switch here, we've still got the photograph in the background there. So let's just get rid of that. And then we go back to here. We don't want it in the background. It's just extra information that will be added to. If we were to turn this into a PDF, the photograph would then be in the background, adding extra data that we just don't need. You do not have the photograph in your map. That is not part of your map, so it's not to be there. So what we have a piece of paper here. This is A4, and we have a map. This object here is a map. So it's like a map frame that's been added to the paper. So that is an object. Once we're working with that, we can start by adding coordinates. We want coordinates on our map. So this is the thing that is active. I'll set the scale here. I'm using a scale of 1000 because I've been lazy and not mapped 500 by 500. I've made a smaller map. You must do more. So we'll minimize that for a bit. Click that down, the extents, that's fine. What we want is grids here. And we click on grids and then we click on the plus sign. And then we want to mark that as active, modify the grid, and then we get up these properties here. What sort of grid do we want? Well, there are many different possibilities here, but I'm going to go with frame and annotation only. So we just get coordinates around the edges of the map. The interval of this distance, I'm going to set this to 50. That should be good enough. Set that to 50, no offset. I go down, frame style. So here we want interior ticks, like that. So we can see we've got these tick marks now. It may be quite difficult to see, but there are these just little lines going in at the edges to show where we have an actual tick. Now you can set whether you want these all the way around or if you just want them on 1 or 2 sides. You'll need them on at least 2 sides, one showing the eastings and one showing the northings, but you can have them on all 4 sides. So at least 2 sides, but you can have more. Draw coordinates. Click on that, yes. And as you can see here, the coordinates have ended up on the outside of the map. So we need to set those up. So we want them inside the frame, inside the frame, inside the frame, and inside the frame there. We can set the font if we want. I'm not going to change that now. It seems to be okay. And reduce the coordinate precision. We don't need the decimal places. It really is not that important. So we reduce the coordinates down. So this is every 50 meters. It gets us some idea of where we are and some sort of scale. We also need to remember what coordinate system this is, because the whole map has been produced. Actually, I should have pointed that out earlier, that we are using the map's own coordinate system. So it's SWIRF 99 TM, which we will specify later on. But for now, we've just got the coordinates on the map. So that's that first step. That looks right. There are more things you can play around with if you want, but those are the basics. Let's add in a scale bar. Scale bar, we've got that there. And let's add it in, say, down there. We can move it later if we're not happy with it. And again, if we click on the scale bar there, that's an object up there, and we have different settings. This is single box. Where it says map 1, it means that's what it's referring to. This scale bar applies to this map. We can actually design our layouts to have several different maps in different scales. and associate the different scale bars with different maps. But we only have one map on our paper here, so that we don't need to think about that for now, but it's just telling us that it is associated with that map. So we can have, there are lots of different types. You can choose whichever you want, except for numeric, really. If we click on numeric, we can see it just becomes numbers, and that's no good. If this map isn't printed properly, the scale is a little off, then that number won't apply. Whereas if we use a scale box, it's correct. Any distortion, most distortions at least, that occur to the map, to the paper, will apply to the scale bar as well. So the scale bar will still be correct for the map. So that's why we use a scale bar. And you can choose any, there are lots of different types. You can just stick to single box here. With the multiplier, again, we don't need to worry about that number format. We can change what the numbers look like, how many segments there are to the left of 0. Some maps you'll see where they have something to the left of 0 for whatever reason. The height, the style of it. One thing we might want to add onto this, just to make it a little clearer, is a background. So we can do that. Frame I'm not going to bother with, but we can, if we like the positioning or not, we can place that somewhere. It might be nice to try and line it up with coordinates, if you so wish. That might do something. But if it's not aesthetically pleasing, then just move it, place it to where you think is correct and where the information is available to the user, to the reader. North arrow, we have a north arrow here. Click on that and we can put our north arrow in somewhere. Where do we want our north arrow? The positioning of this is also going to be up to you. Let's try and put it up there, say. There we have a north arrow, and we can change that if we like. We can go to this. There are arrows here, and we can change it to something more to our liking, whichever we would prefer. Let's just see if we can make that a little. No, it doesn't want to know. So we have some north arrows anyway. Let's just take that one. It's nice and discreet, and you can look at the colors. The fill color is white, the stroke color is black, stroke width, size and placement. You can give that a background as well, or not. Just it varies. Fill color, stroke color. We can increase that, it just becomes blacker. And there's our arrow, very discreet. Perhaps a little too discreet, so maybe we want to change it to something else. I mean, you'll just have to play around with these settings until you can find something that works for you. Maybe that would. I'm going to change that to black color. There we go. That's a little Star Trekky. Okay. Anyway, there's a north arrow. Right. So now the next thing would be the legend. This is where things start getting a little tricky. We need to start working with it. So here's our add legend. A lot of this is going to be automated. So we click on that and we're going to put the legend, say, here. It fills up. So now we've got a little bit of work to do. We can add a title to it. At the moment, there is no title. We can add in legend, if we spell it correctly. There are different arrangements here, symbols on left, symbols on right. I mean, just symbols on left is pretty standard. Fit to contents reduces the size of the box surrounding it so that it actually fits. Let's kill the auto update. Only show items inside the linked map. That's good. So we've not got anything that's not there. We don't really want this place name. We can get rid of that. So let's reduce that. That's why we got rid of the auto update, so that that wouldn't always come in there. Now, the other thing we need to do is look at this. If we right click on that, we can click on hidden, and that hides the name of the layer. We don't really need the layer names in there. Not for now. Get rid of those. It just tidies up the hidden. And for some reason, it insisted on putting that in there as well. Let's get rid of that. So now we have our legend. We can put that in there. I'll move it up to there if you like. is this pretty? Does it look nice? It's, yeah, again, things to mess around with. You can change the background color, the positioning, placement, but we've got all the symbols that are actually visible in the map on in our legend. Text size, if we think these, this is all too, the text is too large, we want to make it smaller, so we can click on here. There's the title font if we want to make that smaller. Grouping headings, subgroup headings, item labels. So if we, that's in this rather horrid font here, so we can change it to something else. Regular, and change the size to 10 and makes it smaller. Saves us a little bit of space. The symbols are still as large as they were. That would have to be changed. We can go back. If we think the symbols are too large, we can change the actual symbols. The symbols in the legend should always match in size and form those in the map. So we would actually have to change these symbols by going back and editing the symbols in the layers. What else do we have? We've got a title to put in. So let's click on this. Is called Add Label. Now this, as the name suggests, you could actually use for other purposes. Instead of having these place names in the actual as data in the map, you could add them in later with the help of this tool. Let's just see how that works. But rather than adding it as a label, we'll add it as the title of the map. So let's put a title up here. And it's just this box to begin with. And this is supposed to be a pizza map. I haven't any pizzerias in this area, so I'm not going to call it a pizza map. I'm going to call this my wonderful and we then go to the font here, and let's look for a decent font. You can choose whichever you want, which you think is good. Let's really annoy everybody and take Comic Sans and really go to town and make it bold and cursive, and then make it big, just to really annoy everybody. And then that will need to be, maybe that was a little too large. Maybe I'll just reduce the size somewhat. That'll do. There we go. So that's a nice annoying font for this map. And then we also need to come down here and put a background in it. Do that. There we go. So my wonderful map in a horrible font. I'm not suggesting you use a horrible font. I'm just doing it for laughs. Next step. What else do we need? Right, we need to actually add information about who made the map, when it was made, who owns the data, and so on. So again, another text box. So we click there and we'll add that data somewhere on this map. Not sure where I want to put it. Maybe we can add a box here. So that's the text box if we go up here. So and then we want date. So what's the date today? I think it's something like this. Then my name. And then this is owned by, the copyright of this aerial photograph is owned by Lantmäteriet. So we need to get the copyright symbol. For those of you who have a Mac, congratulations, you've got the copyright symbol there available directly on your keyboard. For those of you using Windows, if you have a sort of large keyboard with a number pad at the side, you're good to go. Otherwise, if you have a smaller one without the number pad, you'll need to activate the numbers within the keyboard. Not the numbers at the top row, but the keypad numbers, not the numbers at the top row. So then we press the Alt button, 0169, and let go, and we get the copyright symbol, Alt 0169. That only works with these numbers here, not the ones on the top row, but the number pad numbers. So that gets you the copyright symbol, and then we write in so they've got their cred. And then also, if we've collected data from another source, based on aerial photo, and then we can actually go back up, and I used so giving them the credit they deserve for doing a job. We might want to tidy up this text, and then we QGIS 3.6 and for the SPG 091. Then we know why the map was made as well. So these are just some of the details you can include. We also need to put in the coordinate system. So CRS is 3ref 99 TM. Gap in there. There we go. So now we have basically covered ourselves. We've described the data set. Now, as you can see, this takes up quite a lot of space and is not terribly visible at the moment because we need to put a background in there, make it take up slightly less space. We can edit the font here, make that smaller. Doesn't need to be huge. It's text. It needs to be readable, but it doesn't need to be huge. I mean, people generally speaking aren't going to read it. Let's get it out of the way. Let's put it down there. We're covering up coordinates, but we've got enough elsewhere. So those are the basics. Then you need to start adding information about the view, the pizzerias. What we've got here, you can use these text boxes again. You can add images. There's add a picture here. So if you have a little picture of the pizzeria you want to add in, you can do that. Place these items around in your map. There are other functions here, symbols and what have you. Feel free to explore them and design your map. But those are the basics for getting the legend, north arrow, coordinates, scale bar, and the title into the map. So let's end that video there. The next one will be more advanced.